Welcome you, but I'm going to turn this over tonight to Adam Bachner, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
So, thanks. Did everyone have some handouts? I see some extras here. There's a packet that looks like this and a single sheet that didn't make it in. So, I pass those around. We're all set. All right. So, hi, I'm Adam. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you a lot for coming because I have a couple of kids in school and I can't tell you, it's really hard for me to get to these events at their schools. So I get it. And I really am glad so many of you are here tonight. I am the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, which is a new thing in this district. So I'll spend just a minute to tell you what that thing is. There hasn't been a Director of Curriculum and Instruction for several years. And at this point, with all the new initiatives coming down from the state and new things going on in the schools, the school district and the Board of Education decided that it would be good to bring someone on to help move a lot of different things forward all at once, including probably nothing bigger than Common Core. So in some ways, what we're going to talk about tonight is probably the lion's share of my whole job. Common Core, the changeover to Common Core, what it means for teachers, what it means for students, and none of that really gets anywhere without you folks. You guys are really vital allies in this, hopefully allies, I'll put that out there. But, you know, this is something that we didn't schedule this because, oh my God, people are angry at the commissioner or whatnot. We scheduled this because we knew you needed the information. And all of a sudden, Common Core was in the news a lot, and things got very hot. And this is not about, politics tonight. This is really, we want to talk about standards. We want to talk about what it means for your kids. Well, I'll show you, in fact, this next, but enough about me. Let's talk about you. I'm going to, at some points during this little presentation, ask you to speak with the people near you about some questions. So why don't you take just a minute, introduce yourselves, say who you are, grades of your kids, and what brings you here on this otherwise beautiful night. Go ahead and speak with each other like this. If you have children here in the high school, raise your hand. All right, and you can put them down. If you have middle school, a lot of middle school, and elementary school. Okay. Well, you folks with kids in elementary school, like high school parents, your kids get a couple years of this, right? And then they're out. But if you have kids, I met a couple people with kids in kindergarten. You've got 13 years of Common Core to come. So I'm glad you're here because it's going to be a heavy lift. But anyone here, anyone hear a reason why someone's here that they wanted to share anything particularly insightful or noteworthy? Careful, if you cough, I'm going to be drawn to you. No? Okay, so we're all just here because we want to learn about the Common Core. Good, all right, then let's move on. Why belabor it? So here's our objectives for tonight. We're going to start with a conversation about college and career readiness, which is probably a term you've heard bandied about quite a bit in discussions of the Common Core standards. College and career readiness. Talk about that. I want to show you parts of the standards themselves and talk about what they are, why they are, how they're different from old standards. And then this last one, we're really going to get into how to help your students at home. I want to say we're going to have another session in January, which is not a repeat of this. We really want to dig much deeper into what you folks need. So tonight's session, a lot of the materials you're going to see is stuff provided by the state of New York. They have an area on their website that says, if you want to have a parent night about Common Core, use this. So we are using a lot of their stuff, but the intention for January is to really hear from you and other members of the community and talk a lot more specifically about things going on in Dryden and a lot more specifically about how to help your kids. So on your way out, I'll have you give us a little feedback about what else you want. We're not getting into a lot of the political stuff. Race to the top, the funding source that New York got a windfall of money and had to adopt Common Core as a condition. Not talking about it. State Commissioner King, people want his head on a plate. It's fine. Not talking about it. State tests and state test scores, it's all related. All these things are things that need to be discussed. But this is not our purpose for tonight. So if you're here because you're concerned about the teacher evaluation system, I really want to take it off the plate. I'm reading on the internet, people are worried about, they're collecting data about our kids and private companies are going to own the data and there's constitutional privacy issues. Yeah, but not tonight. And this thing, I really want to emphasize that there's some real concerns, and I want to validate them, but I really want to separate what our mission is tonight. I want you to learn about the standards. I don't want to get into this stuff. you have my phone number and email address now if you really want to get into this. It's fun, I'll do it, but not tonight. Yeah, I'm not going to say if that's all right, because that's what we're doing. Okay, but let's do a little vocabulary lesson right now. Here's 4 words that you hear a lot of in schools, right? Standards, curriculum, instruction, and assessment. You've probably seen these 2 words in my job title. But there's some important differences between them. Standards are this. Standards are goals. Standards in this case are end of the year standards that say, or end of school standards that say by the time we get to June, or by the time we get to high school graduation, here's a list of things we want kids to know or be able to do. That's all they are. They are goalposts. Curriculum is actually what we teach, right? So we can have standards that say at the end of 4th grade, we want every kid to be able to do these 10 things in math. The curriculum is, well, what are we going to do in September, and then in October, and then in November in order to get them there. The curriculum is which novels are we reading in the 10th grade class versus the 11th grade class. And the curriculum is what grade level studies the Iroquois, and what grade level does electromagnetism. Those are curriculum decisions. All those curricular decisions support the standards. But again, if you're worried because your kids are bringing home math homework that you don't know what it means anymore, which it might feel like we just did that with everyday math half a decade ago. But those are curricular questions. And maybe in January we'll get a little deeper into those. But standards are the goals. And really today we're about standards. Instruction is really about what does the teacher do when they stand up in front of kids. This is instruction, right? And so that's important. All these things are connected. But I want to stress that the standards, they don't tell us what we have to teach or how we have to teach it. It says right in the document. If you read it, has anyone read it? Okay, a few people who are paid to read it. A few people who never mind. If you read it, it says right up front something like, these standards don't tell you what to teach or how to teach it. They don't tell you how to support kids who are struggling. They don't tell you how to accelerate kids who are gifted. All they say is at the end of 4th grade, here's a list of things the kids should be able to do. How you get there is up to you. So questions about what teachers are doing with kids in the classroom are connected to standards, but they really tend to be curriculum and instruction issues. And then there's assessment. And we know assessment, we know these state tests, they don't make us very happy, any of us, I don't think, in this room. And there's other kinds of assessment. There's this test at the end of a math unit and the science test, and all this testing. There's a lot of it. I read a poll recently that said a lot of people think there's too much testing, and this many people thought there was just the right amount of testing, and there was actually a small percentage of people who said there wasn't enough. I don't want to mute those people, but not tonight. I said, but although my Venn diagram is sort of hard to see, they're all interconnected. When the government changes the standards, it changes curriculum, and it changes instruction, and it changes assessment. It has to. They go along with it. But the Common Core is not curriculum, and the Common Core is not instruction. Those are local decisions. All right, we good so far? Okay, I see some smiles. Yes. That's all right. But if it would make you smile, I'd like to point out there are cookies and there's coffee. Feel free, help yourself. I should have said it before, by the way. Raise your hand and interrupt me. I get ahead of steam. I talk real fast. When I lived in California, they said the New Yorkers would never stop.
Do you want questions as you go, or are we supposed to save our questions?
Go ahead and raise your hand.
Who sets these standards?
Who sets the standards? Who wrote the standards? Or
Is this state, federal, what?
The standards were written by a group of people that were neither state nor federal. They were organized by a collection of governors and a collection of chief state school officers. So remember we talked about Commissioner John King, that people want his head in a silver plate? Imagine 50 of those guys in a room and a bunch of governors. They convened a group of educators to then write the standards. The standards were then shopped around to different states who adopted them. So New York State did not write, but New York State adopted them.
But not all necessarily did.
Not all states necessarily. In fact, I got a pretty map. I'll show you in just a minute. But yeah, so questions about who wrote them are a little complicated to answer. It's also complicated to describe that New York adopted them probably before they had read them. But that's also not for tonight. And by the way, I want you to know, I got into education as a political act, and I take the political side of this stuff very seriously. I have maybe a little sarcastic side to me. I'm a humongous fan of the standards themselves. I have some problems with the way they're being implemented. I have some problems with policy from the state. Like I said, I'm happy to talk to you about it another time. The standards themselves, I'm a tremendous fan. And I have children in 7th and 10th grade that I'm feeling like I wish that they were younger because they would have gotten more years of this. My 10th grader, I'm a little worried. I was talking to someone when I came in tonight. I said, oh, my kid went all the way through Dryden school, wasn't ready for college. I think that's real, and I worry about that. And I think my 7th grader probably in for a better education than my 10th grader. She's going to get a couple more years of this stuff. It's not enough to make me want to have more kids. But, so the standards themselves, and I actually have them here. There's this one big document. It's called the Standards for English Language Arts and Literacy. I'm going to call these ELA standards all night. The ELA standards, English Language Arts and Literacy. Then there's the math standards. So the standards themselves, they come in 2 flavors. There's these 2 big documents, and they are really big. But this is, again, what we're really after tonight is about you guys. So let me stop for a minute and let you guys talk about these. We want to talk about college and career readiness. This just says college readiness. I guess the question here is, in the old days, graduating high school was, did you make it to the finish line, right? And now it's more about, are you ready for what's after the finish line? And graduation should be all about what's after the finish line, whether that's college or a career. So take a minute with the people you're sitting here and address these questions and get ready to share out a couple ideas about it. Please, get right to it. One is, in your handout, I have a habit of giving people copies of some of my slides and not all of my slides. So if you look up here and you see something, you can't find it there, it's not you, it's me. And it's okay. But I tried to give you slides that you might want to take some notes on or bring home and look at later and share with a neighbor or whatnot. The other thing I want to point out is there's so much of our staff that's here tonight. We've got teachers and administrators, mostly on the perimeter who showed up. Thank you guys for being here. Good. A round of applause. Working on that. And I also want to point out that the organized part of this presentation will end before 8 o'clock. At that point, if you got to go, you got to go. But a lot of the people who are here to help you have agreed to stay a little bit later for some Q&A.
Sorry, I think you've got to go. If you have to use the bathroom,
Oh,
it's just and to the right is the closest bathroom for you, okay? Sorry.
so stop me for questions all along, but we will have much more informal time at the end to chat about whatever else is on your mind. But let's get back to this. What is college readiness? Yeah.
Passing your SATs.
Okay. Interesting story about the guy who's the head of the college board who used to be the head of the Common Core. Yeah.
In addition to knowing subjects, they need to be able to do a lot of work on their own
Yeah.
outside of class.
Yeah. So independence, what we call a transfer, where you learn something in one context, you have to be able to do it in another context. You know when to apply stuff. Yeah. What else?
Critical thinking.
Hopefully. Critical thinking. Actually I had an interesting conversation with someone about this yesterday. I said I'm going to hold up. I'll get into that conversation later. Sorry. Jumping the gun. What else about college readiness?
Financial.
Financial, what do you mean?
Somebody has to pay for it.
Okay. Us? The school district? No. Okay, I see your points well taken. Yeah.
You need to be thinking about that. Students, families need to think about
Yeah.
how to pay for college.
Yeah. Well, and there's people who are pretty happy to loan you money and try to collect it from you later. So yeah, it's a big investment. It's wise to do it with some amount of financial incentive at the end. I made somebody very angry. I did a Common Core thing. I think it was teachers. And someone said, education is not all about being able to earn a living. That's true. But it should help us, ultimately to be able to support ourselves and families, right? What else?
Being open to new ideas.
Yes. Which goes along with critical thinking and not just learning a list of facts, but a way of seeing the world, a way about being able to think about the world.
Being able to communicate, read, write, and communicate.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yep.
Without using text. Without texting.
Did you say without?
Without texting, yeah.
Oh, without texting, yeah.
Yeah.
language evolves. It's a constantly changing thing. 100 years from now, they're going to think of how quaint we were with our complete sentences and capital letters. But that's okay. But yes, you have to be able to communicate. And the language arts standards, remember I showed you this? The language arts standards apply to all content areas. That's another thing made clear at the beginning of this. This is not for English teachers. This is for every teacher. So every teacher in the school district right now is learning about how to teach reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Including some teachers that never thought of themselves as English teachers. We're trying to help them think of themselves as English teachers because of what you were saying about needing to be able to critically think, about being open to the world, and about being able to have communication with people. Yeah. Being able to talk. Good. Okay, moving on. Anything else about college readiness?
Ability to make judgments about whether things are true, not so true, possibly true.
One of my favorite things in the Common Core, you're going to hear me talk later a lot about evidence, about evaluating ideas, about evaluating sources. To participate in this information world, you can't just consume all information. You've got to be able to judge it critically. And Common Core is right at that, I think. It's interesting. Okay, sorry, there's me getting political. I'm not going there. Yes?
Wanting to go.
Wanting to go to college.
You're talking about specifically about college readiness. I don't want to go. Desire. And not have read them.
You got to get to that point in 12th grade where it looks like it would be a good idea to stay in school longer, right? Yeah. I got to remember that in my own case. Anything else? All right. Move along. I think here's some stuff. But these standards really are all about college and career readiness. They're all about not only college but the workforce. The idea college now in this terminology is about work skills a lot. You know, we need our art history majors, but we need our art history majors to have a job too, right? So there's that balancing. But a lot of it about college and the workforce. And again, it's like, what does that mean? So here's some other ideas. And I think this echoes some of the things that you were saying about these skills, about being ready. Oh, here's a funny movie I want to show you. You guys, can I show you the movie for a few minutes? It's mostly to give my voice a break, but also.
No, we're working at getting some of these machines shut down. Yeah,
Okay.
Hello.
So,
Hello.
good.
Make it full
Welcome to
screen.
Energy Conservation Incorporated.
Full screen.
Thank you. I really hope to get a job here.
Well, let's get started with your interview. What do you think are your greatest strengths?
My greatest strengths.
Yes, your greatest strengths.
What are my answer choices?
What do you mean?
My answer choices. You know, A, B, C, or D.
There are not any answer choices.
Oh, I understand. In that case, I choose C.
You choose C?
Yes, I choose C. My 5th grade teacher told me to always choose C when I did not know the answer.
Oh, it sounds like your 5th grade teacher really prepared you for your future. Moving on then. This job will require you to write proposals about energy conservation. Are you a strong writer?
Yes, my teachers always told me that I write very good stories. I also like to write poetry.
Well, we will not need you to write poetry or stories. We will need you to write proposals regarding energy conservation.
Proposals. Is that like writing a persuasive essay?
Sure.
In that case, yes. I am very good at writing proposals. Every year in school, my teachers made me write a proposal regarding school uniform policies. I also wrote some proposals about banning cell phones in school. Would you like to read them?
No, I would not like to read them. If you get a job here, you will need to write proposals about energy conservation. Your proposals will need to include basic mathematical equations as well as scientific research.
Wait,
What is wrong?
I am confused.
That is not very surprising.
You said I would have to include mathematical equations and scientific research in my writing.
Yes, that is what I said.
But that doesn't make sense.
What doesn't make sense?
Math, science, and writing. They are separate subjects. I don't know if I can incorporate math and science into my writing. They are all very different.
Well, if you work here, that is what you will have to do.
This job seems very difficult. I do not think my public education prepared me to work here.
Well, I have to agree with you. I have one more question for you, though. Why did you think you were ever qualified to work here in the first place? Why are you looking around?
You asked me a question, and I do not know the answer. So, I am looking for someone to think pair share with.
There is no one for you to think pair share with.
Oh. In that case, I choose C.
I think I've heard enough. Thank you for coming in.
Okay. So I don't know if that was funny or depressing. Let me close it for a second. But I gotta tell you, that fifth grade teacher who said, when in doubt, choose C, I was a fifth grade teacher. I told my kids that. We did all kinds of writing proposals about school uniforms and banning cell phone use. We wrote a lot of stories. In fact, when I was teaching elementary school, at the school district where I worked, the child had to write 3 times a year and get evaluated on it, starting in first grade, and they could write a story about their favorite birthday party every time, 3 times a year, all the way through elementary school. And at the end of elementary school, we told they were a good writer. And they may have been a good writer of the favorite birthday party story. But you can see Common Core is not buying that anymore. They're saying, if you want to be able to compete in the world, if you want to be able to get a job, yeah, you need to write the birthday party story, but you got to move on from the birthday party story too, right? You can't get yourself into a position where you're in an interview with someone who's saying you have to do math, science, and literacy at the same time, and you've never done math, science, and literacy at the same time. It's not fair to the kids. So the schools have to change to keep up with these demands because, as I love reminding people, China has more honor students than we have students.
I'm not impressed.
Okay, moving on. I like saying that. It sort of makes people very sullen. I'm going kind of quickly through these. I think it's really important to keep our focus on this college and career readiness idea because everything that's happening at every grade level is about preparing kids for what comes after graduation. So the map. Remember, someone asked me how many states. I think it's less than it used to be. I think a state or two have bailed out in the Common Core standards. But it's, let's see, 50 states, 5 of them are red. Okay, it's pretty bad. Now, most states, by the way, are tiptoeing into it. Most states that adopted the Common Core standards are a couple of years off of implementation. Not New York. New York said, we're adopting them, we're starting now. Actually, that's not true. I want to tell you, I first read the Common Core standards in 2010. So for those of us in the industry, we've sort of seen this coming. It's big news in the last couple months. But we've actually, frankly, had a lot of years to think about them and start getting used to them. But they are a big, big, big deal for teachers. And this is what they look like. You have in your packet a page beyond the PowerPoint that looks like this. I'm not going to get too deep into the standards themselves, but I want to give you a little flavor for them. These are the ELA anchor standards. Do you see them? You'll find that yours doesn't have yellow at the bottom because color copying is expensive. Yeah, there it is, exactly right after the PowerPoint, you'll find it. Now, anchor standards are the key. Anchor standards are college and career readiness standards. These are the graduation standards. And in reading, this is it. You're looking at all the reading standards. If you found the right page, that is. I feel a lot of people still struggle. I think it's right after the PowerPoint. Right? Yeah. It says college and career readiness anchor standards for reading. Oh, there's a 16 on the top? Okay. Good. The people who wrote the Common Core standards got together with a bunch of people from industry and a bunch of people from universities. And they said to them, what do you need kids to be able to do? And this is what they told them. And then once they had a pretty good idea of what they needed kids to do when they graduated, they worked their way backwards from that. This has never been done before. We had state standards before this, by the way. We had state ELAs, yeah.
Did they also work with child psychologists to determine that they would be at an appropriate learning level for those children?
I believe so. I can't speak to what the child psychologists did, but they said that they brought in experts in developmental appropriateness. But yeah, that's what they claim. We'll look at that. I think that's a really valid question. I want to look at that in a minute. The very next thing we do, okay? Because I'm inferring what you're getting at. Let's hold off on it for a second, okay? All right. So this backwards design, though, starting with what do people need to be able to do when they graduate, is kind of smart. Because in the past, the standards were, well, here's a long list of things kids need to be able to do. Let's do some of them in 9th grade and some more of them in 10th grade. And they sort of dealt them out like cards. And the lists were much longer. I mean, this is 11 things. This is just reading. There's more, right? In English language arts, there's 4 sets like this. But really, that's like, what, 40, 45 standards? It is a much shorter list than we used to have. And they're very connected to each other. I'm not going to get too much into it. But if you flip the page over that you're looking at, you'll see this. Now, the top of this next page, this is anchor standard number 1 for reading. You just saw it on the other page. You saw 10 of these. Now we're just looking at one of them. But what you see on this page is all the different grade level versions of this one standard. Standard 1 says when kids graduate, they need to be able to read text and understand it. Right? Basically, it's about close reading. I should have this thing memorized by now, but you can see, gather relevant information from, oh, I have the writing one up here. Sorry, you guys, I have the wrong one on my slide, but the reading one, am I wrong? It's basically they should read closely and understand things? Okay, good. Now, go to the bottom of the page and look at the kindergarten version of this. And then read your way up, grade by grade, and see how it changes as it goes up through the grades. And I've taught a lot of these grade levels. Honestly, I don't see stuff that's inappropriate. You may run into stuff that's inappropriate, that's curriculum or instruction or assessment. Remember we talked before about the difference. The standards, by the end of kindergarten, should a 5-year-old be able to do what it says here, with prompting and support, ask and answer questions about key details in a text? Yeah. 5-year-olds I know, if I read them a story and then I say, ask them a couple questions about what happened, where did it take place, who are the characters, what they do, yeah, they can answer. If they understood the story, if the story was cognitively available to them, if it wasn't a 12-year-old story, if it was a 5-year-old story, yeah, they should be able to answer 5-year-old questions like this. And as you move up through the grade levels, I spent a lot of my career in 5th grade, this thing about quoting accurately from text, yeah, the beginning of 5th grade, kids didn't like to do that, but I would work with them on it. If you've got something in the book that's said so well that you want to have it in your essay, lift it right out, put quotation marks around it, that's good. If the author said it better than you can, do that. They can do it. 11-year-olds? Sure. Now again, your question about developmental appropriateness, the standards, I think, are. I don't think they ask kids to do things beyond their abilities. The curricular materials, the instructional decisions that the teachers are making, you're going to run into things like that always. But the standards themselves, mostly I stand behind that they are developmentally appropriate. This is just one example, but I wanted you to see, remember I said there were 10 of them for reading, and then there's about 40 or 45 of them total, and for each one of them there's a page that looks like this. So if I'm a teacher, I've got hundreds of these things to learn. Now you see why it's a big job. Remember I said I've been looking at these for a couple years. It's a big, big job. If you're an elementary school teacher, you need to learn not only your 5th grade standards, you need to see what comes before, and you need to see where the kids are going after, all the way across all the standards in ELA and in math. It's a very, very heavy lift. And if your teachers seem like their hairline is going more and more towards where mine is, this is why. It's a big, big deal. That was a joke about hair loss. I'd like to apologize for that. Okay. So that's what the reading standards look like. And all the ELA standards, the writing standards, the speaking and listening standards, the language standards, they all have the same organization. Start with graduation expectations, and then you've got a whole scale of standards that lead to that graduation expectation, step by step, bit by bit. Math is different. There's what math looks like. This is the one sheet that's not part of your stapled together packet. It didn't make it into the photocopier in time, and it looks like this. I've got some extras here if you'd like. The math standards are different because there's two sets of standards. There's one set, these top ones, that are called mathematical practices. And this is about the way that we approach math, the way we think about math, the way we operate mathematically. And the nice thing about those 8 standards for mathematical practice, they don't change, grade to grade. They're the same things we want kindergartners and 12th graders to be doing. The kindergarten version of these things will look very different than the 12th grade version, but these are habits of mind. And I know people that this is their favorite thing of all the Common Core, ELA and math. It's these 8 things that they love the most. And this is what they keep by their bedside. And this is what makes them wish their children were younger. And this is not new. The Common Core people stole this from the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. People who spend a lot of time thinking very hard about how to teach math to children have been telling teachers to do this for years. And good teachers have been doing this for years. But those mathematical standards, the mathematical practices rather, they only paint part of the picture. The content standards, this is the stuff that differs year to year and grade to grade. Now it used to be, and you'll see a whole bunch of different topics that we teach in math, it used to be we basically taught a little of all of them every year. It used to be that kindergartners did a kindergarten version of statistics and probability. Someone decided, well, maybe that's not such a good idea. Maybe we should teach fewer things and teach them a little deeper. So they reorganized these things in some ways, and probably the biggest thing in the news about the math standards is, oh, algebra was pushed off a year. And I keep reading on Facebook, I find these very angry looking people that are saying, how is it going to help my kid to have to wait an extra year to do algebra? Well, because experts in how children learn math decided that they needed more skills to be consolidated before you try to give them algebra. And that if you try to give them algebra before they have all the other skills they need, they won't learn algebra. And if they don't learn algebra, that's it. It's a game stopper for math. So make sure they have all the things they need. And if that means pushing it off a year, push it off a year. And teach other things more deeply, because by the time they get there, they really need to have a lot of facility with other parts of mathematics. Math teachers, am I misstating any of this stuff here? All right, good. Okay, thank you. And then the other thing about the math standards that's different, there's not a lot of difference in high school. High school math, those content experts, they had it down pretty well. They knew what high-level math was. The problem was not enough kids were getting into the high-level math classes, right? So the math classes in high school don't change a whole lot. They change some. What the big change is that everything that comes before them should have more kids ready for more sophisticated math work by the time they get here. So the organization of all these math standards is completely different from the organization of the ELA standards, but keep your eye on these things, the mathematical practices. Tremendously important. I don't think you have this in your packet. It is on the top of this thing. Okay, does this all make your brain hurt? Yeah, well, okay, so it's making your kids' brains hurt, it's making your teachers' brains hurt. We're all in this together, okay? So, nice deep soothing breath. Let's all breathe in, breathe out. I said this about shifts. I was doing some professional development with the teachers in the district, and I said, we're going to have 6 shifts, and someone said, you better watch his language. But there is an F in there. Now, the thing about the 6 shifts is because all this stuff here is enough to make your brain hurt, and the state knew that, they didn't say to the teachers, here's all your new standards, go teach them, right? They knew it's a lot to learn, and they wanted to have ways for us to tiptoe our way into it. So they gave us these 6 shifts, and the idea is they found themes in the standards. So before you had time to read 100 and some pages of these things, you could learn 6 shifts in ELA. Start changing the way you teach right away. Spend a couple years really learning your standards, and you'd be well on your way. And the same thing for math. So you've probably heard about these things in the news, in New York State at least. Is this familiar? Have you heard of the 6 shifts?
No.
Okay. So 6 shifts. I want to share these with you because their way into the standards. But before, turn and talk to the people next to you about shifting. What do you think we mean by shifting? Room with bad acoustics. Make sure you plan lots of water breaks for yourself by having them chat with each other about stuff like this. So, who can volunteer some information about what do you think this means? What is a shift?
Change in focus.
Change? A change in
Focus.
focus? A change in gears, position? Oh, like in a car, changing gears, okay.
Speed.
Change in speed.
Doing it in steps.
Yeah. Yeah. Doing it in steps. The thing I like to emphasize about these shifts is teachers have not been asked to reinvent themselves. They've been asked to do things a little different. For some teachers, a lot different. The truth is, a lot of the instructional changes that need to go along with these standards are things that great teachers have been doing for a long time. In fact, you go back through your kid's school history and go talk to the best teacher that they've had, talk to them about Common Core, and they'll probably say, yeah, I was doing about 80% of that all along. The 20% is a big deal. And for teachers who maybe aren't as effective, it may be the opposite, and then it's a much bigger deal. Remember I said about the standard driving changes in curriculum and driving changes in instruction? There's something in the standards that I'm seeing that's taking teachers who are in the middle and pushing them to be better teachers. You cannot be sort of a teacher who's got it, like in neutral and survive in Common Core world. You've got to step up your game. And so there's a good thing, right? Of course, all of our, like what we got in here, all of our teachers are above average, as are our students. But we have 6 shifts in ELA and 6 more, and you have these in your packet. And these are the things that are really different in school. These are the things that you're going to really start seeing changes. You're probably hearing about reading more nonfiction. Learning about the world through reading. I can't tell you how many lessons I taught as a 4th or 5th grade teacher where I would stand up and, for example, tell the kids everything they need to know about the Iroquois, and then give them something to read, where all the reading is going to do is confirm what I've already told them. Common Core says, do it the other way around. Give them something to read. Let them learn it off the paper. And then work with them to build their understanding of it. Don't give away the farm. That's one of the huge differences. Learning about the world through reading. This thing about reading more challenging text more closely, a bigger change than it seems. Remember we talked before about evidence, about being able to be critical consumers of information. This focus on evidence and what are the claims that are being made, or what claims are you making in your writing. More nonfiction, and this thing about academic vocabulary. We realized in education somewhere along the way that the game changer for a lot of kids, especially kids from poverty, was vocabulary. That what do they bring to school that's different? Kids who come from families that have backgrounds where both parents went to college and have professional careers versus kids who came from houses that have a whole list of challenges that go along with living in poverty. And from an academic standpoint, vocabulary. Oh, there's lots of other things. We could talk about nutrition, we could talk about health, we could talk about emotional issues and psychological issues. There's a tremendous list of challenges that go along with poverty. But if you got one thing in school you want to do to help kids from poverty, that's it. Vocabulary, vocabulary, vocabulary. For the Common Core to prioritize it like that, to me it's an equity issue, it's a social justice issue. To say we can't make it enough that there's a lot of kids who know these big fancy words, watch them fly. We have to deal with the kids who come to school not knowing the big fancy words. We have to teach them the vocabulary explicitly. So these are the 6 shifts in ELA. These are the 6 major changes. You can look through 100 pages of standards and learn them all at every grade level. Boil it down, this is what's different in English language arts. There's other things that are important. These are the major themes. Math. Same idea. 100 pages full of standard, this is what it boils down to. I point this stuff out because this is really the stuff you're probably seeing coming home. When you talk to kids about what they do in school and you look at their homework, these 6 shifts are probably embodying a lot of the things that are going to look to you strange and different. these math shifts, and again, I say this is just what good teachers have been doing all along. Good teachers with everyday math in their hands did this stuff. Good teachers before everyday math was invented did this stuff. But it was never sort of it was never mandated the way it is now. It was never the law of land. So I think that's good, right? Are you guys with me still? Yeah. If it's getting late, I want to tell you, I'm going to go like 15 more minutes. You going to be with me that long? Okay. I know it's late for all of us. But now I want to get into this last question about, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, and how can we help you to do it? And this, again, is something we want to get much more deeply into in January. So if this goes a little fast, or if it feels like it's a little surface, that's okay. Because you come back January 15th is a Wednesday. Hopefully we'll be in a room with better acoustics, and we'll dig in a little bit deeper. But here's to get you guys started. The first thing, by the way, is coming here tonight. I really applaud you, and I think that this is a tremendous step forward in being able to help. And look, it says right here, attend these meetings. But read with your children. That's not a Common Core idea. That's what we've been telling parents forever, but keep doing it. Do more of it. And you may remember that shift about nonfiction. I love reading stories to my kids. Little nonfiction never hurts. Actually, I find that when I put my kids down like in front of a pile of books, the image of me putting my son down anywhere. But when he was this big, if I would put him, like it was this Dorling, what are they called? The eyewitness books, right? These, I don't know if you've seen it, big, thin, hardcover books full of facts. That's what they would open. They loved nonfiction. I would bring my kids into the library. They weren't interested in the picture book section. They didn't know how to find books there really. When I was a teacher, they would go right to the books with the numbers on the spines. They would go to the nonfiction book. Man, they would have these tremendous books with this, like it was Star Wars nonfiction. Have you seen these? Where they like bisect all the flying stuff, and it looks, it's fiction, but it's like nonfiction, right? Anyhow, the point is, kids like nonfiction. If parents expose them to it, they'll go along with it. This thing about talking about homework, I cannot overemphasize that. That's where you're going to get most of your information about what's going on in school. Because if your kids are anything like my kids, and you say to them, "What did you do in school today?" you're going to get an answer like this, right? But if they're sitting at the table with math homework in front of them, you can sit next to them and say, "What's that?" And then you have a conversation going. If you see them writing an essay about something, you sit down and say, "What are you writing about?" Now you have a conversation going. We're going to talk more about how to have Common Core conversations with your kids. But so this is the kind of stuff you can do, and really this is where it's at. It's this moment in your home. So let's talk a little bit about after-school routines, and I want you to really share with the people around you, because I think if you're like me and you sometimes get in the habit of the kids are on their own for their homework, that now's not a great time to do that, because you're really going to miss a lot of stuff that's different than it was before, and especially if you've got older kids where they've gone through 5, 6, 7, 8 years of school doing it a certain way. If they've gotten pretty independent with their homework, it's a really good time to re-engage them if you want to know what's going on that's different than it has been before. So talk to people about this sort of your after-school routine or your homework time routine in your house, and maybe you'll come up with some good ideas to share. Please. Who has a really cool idea for like your after-school homework routine or anything like that? Just like, oh, this is really, I just heard something really cool I want to share.
Would you repeat what you said? We were told. We didn't hear you.
What I was asking is if anyone has something in their own home or heard someone else say something that strikes them as a really good idea in response to one of these questions. Because I really need to know. I got 2 kids at home, I tell you.
Always start with a snack.
When they get home from school, they should always eat after.
What was that book? Everything I Needed to Know in Life I Learned in Kindergarten?
Feed them first, and they're not strong.
Feed them first. What else?
Keep it a routine. That's what I found. It has to be a routine.
Yeah, like same time, same place. And I guess in a lot of families that's crucial. In my family it is. It's like we have a space for it. You go in that room and you have a place to sit at a desk, and It's not at the kitchen table or on the couch. Cell phones? You know that myth about multitasking? I don't know about you. I cannot watch a TV show anymore without my phone and I play my card. I have a card game on my phone. That's not really multitasking. I just don't care so much about the TV show or the card game. The human brain can't really multitask. We can serially task, and you're just getting less bang for your buck. Yeah. Say again?
Each task suffers more things to try to do.
Yeah. The research is clear. You got it. The TV's got to go off. You know, cell phone. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be preachy, but I think these are sort of basic. Not easy, but common understanding. What else? Anyone have like a really great way to motivate kids with hard work? Just really, I'm coming on you guys.
I don't know that I would say I have a great way, but we discuss on the first day when homework comes home, some of the stuff comes home for the whole week. Discuss the week ahead. And like, you might want to do more tonight, because on Thursday you have these things to do.
Yeah.
And so it's your choice at that point to either apply for now or just, when is some of this work that's got to be done by Thursday night going to get done?
That time management gets more important as those kids get older, right? So now when I say, what homework do you have? And they say none, I say, okay, none for tomorrow, tell me about the next day. Turns out, well, I got this tremendous research project in 2 days that I haven't started, but that didn't seem like what you were asking me. All right, anything else before we move on? Okay. Yes?
Over here, we were talking about how when children have a problem with a question, to have them restate the question out loud, and sometimes they clear up.
Yeah. I no longer answer questions my kids ask. I just respond with more questions. It drives them a little crazy, but when you ask the right question, they have to restate it. Yeah, it really clarifies it. And sometimes just when they hear themselves say it out loud, they get it. Right? They read it off the page. There's a math problem. It doesn't make sense. It comes out of their mouth. I was like, oh yeah, I know how to do that. Right. So yeah. Good. I was talking to someone a minute ago, by the way, who said, yeah, the Common Core stuff we're talking about makes sense, but you really wanted to get into what is going on with this homework and what's coming home from school. And again, I really want to get into that more in January. If this starts to make you feel, like this is making your blood pressure rise because you remember that 4th grade math sheet, and you didn't like it, I'm going to give you on your way out a chance to give us some feedback about really specifically what do you want to get into in January. And that's when we'll get to that. So there's a few more things about this idea of a backpack and what's going to be coming home from school. Things you might see, including like real-world examples. Non-fiction books. This writing assignment suddenly is out of non-fiction writing assignments, where it's not always my favorite birthday party, and hopefully not, what was the girl in the video? Persuasive essay about school uniforms and a cell phone. Those are valuable. They've got their place, but there's no evidence brought to bear in those essays usually. There should be nonfiction writing that's dependent upon something that they've read. You've probably seen this in the math, right?
Yes.
Where it's not enough just to get the right answer anymore. Doggone it. Get the right answer 2 ways, draw me a picture and convince me that you're right. But those are the kids who can flat out do math, I gotta tell you. Those are the kids who can flat out do it. If the kids can give you a right answer, but they can't give it to you 2 ways or draw you a picture or convince you that they're right, spend some more time after they have a right answer, asking them questions, talking about it. So these are related to those 6 shifts. These are probably some of the things you're seeing already. And then here's some, and this I think is in your packet, right? Some ideas for questions to ask your kids. This is my favorite one. Did you use evidence when you talked about what you read? Maybe we should have a contest about how best to rephrase that question so it's not to seem like a complete and utter dork. But my kids, they have to put up with questions like this all the time. Like, Dad, I wish you weren't a teacher. How did you use evidence in school today, Johnny? This is a cool one. How often did you use math today? It would be nice to hear them saying, well, in school we did math in math class, of course, but then my teacher made us do math in English class too, and you won't believe what we had to do. And really, maybe seeing more math across the curriculum. Just like you may be seeing more reading and writing across the curriculum. Remember I talked about vocabulary? Vocabulary is a memory game, right? Learning new vocabulary words, and the way that things are solidified in long-term memory are through repetition. But it's not enough to do repetition in a short amount of time. You need to do some repetition, wait a couple hours, do some more repetition, wait a couple days, do some more repetition. The neuroscientists tell us that. So it's not enough for your kids to go to English class and learn some really groovy words. At home, ask them what they were, and that is helping solidify it in their memory. It makes a humongous difference. With memorization tasks. Not everything we do in school is try to remember this information, but vocabulary is try to remember what this word means. And so that kind of repetition is really important. If you learn any new words in class today, put them up on the refrigerator. Paint your wall with, they have this black stuff that turns the whole thing into a chalkboard, and write your words up on your chalkboard in the kitchen, and then just get a reading mask or something. Again, talking to your kids, asking them questions, discussing it. You know, not about did you get the right answer, did your teacher said you did a good job. You know, really getting into what did you do, what was it about. So this is what we'll get more into January. A little bit more specific too, with the specific assignments that your kids are bringing home. I like this one. Well, yes, we could read your blog, or you could just tell us about your school day. All right, let me point you to a couple resources, and then we're going to be done and just around to answer some questions. This is a website called Engage New York. Have you heard of Engage New York?
Yes.
It looks like Engadget, but it's Engage New York, and this is where the state is putting all their education reform stuff. So there's way more here than Common Core. If you want to learn about the teacher evaluation system that a lot of people are talking about, you read about it. Data-driven instruction, all kinds of things that aren't related to what we're talking about tonight, but you'll see Common Core right over in the there. The thing about this website, it's really hard to find stuff, but it's got a really good search box. So if you know what you're looking for and you put it in the search box, don't worry about like menus and getting through lists of things. Put stuff in the search box. And then they also have a section on Common Core just for families, which we've linked right to our website. Have you been here? Did you go to our homepage and click on this? This doesn't take you to the front page of Engage New York. It takes you right inside to the family resources where you're going to find, well, materials like what I've stapled into your packets. You'll see some more information there about the 6 shifts, 12 shifts. You'll see some more of those things about how to talk to your kids, a Q&A section. They've got lots of different stuff in here. If you really poke around the website, you're going to find videos of teachers teaching. It's kind of cool. If you want to see what a 4th grade fractions lesson looks like, they don't have all the fractions lessons, but you know, you can click on it and see a teacher somewhere in New York State teaching fractions to 4th graders. If that's the kind of thing you're into. But there's a ton of stuff there. And, oh, and that's it. Except in the back of your packet, I'm sorry, any questions for the group before we get into closing down? Anything I said that didn't make any sense or that you take issue with? Boy, that was a bad question to ask. Anything that you just can't go on until you get it? Okay, so the very last sheet, and again, oh, there's other things in here. There's other resources for you from Engage New York, and one really cool thing I put in here is this. This was a viewpoint from the Ithaca Journal about a week or 2 ago. They had a whole lot of Common Core stuff. And one of the things that was in there was this letter written by an education professor at Cornell trying to pull apart all the different things that are making people angry, pull them apart from the standards themselves. Remember at the beginning, I gave you that list of here's all the things we're not talking about tonight? He goes more into why it's so complicated, why it's so hard to understand where there's good stuff mixed in with the bad stuff. So, John Sipple is the guy's name. It's this guest viewpoint from the Ithaca Journal. I threw it in there because I think it does a better job explaining than I did. This thing here is what I want you to leave behind. I'd like you to rip this thing off, like that, and tell us a little bit about how tonight went. Tell us what you want for January, and leave it on the tables. As you're packing up to go, you are encircled by staff who are here, who really, aren't here to answer your questions. I said to them, please come answer their questions. So you have elementary, middle school, and high school people who have expertise in ELA and math. Almost the entire administrative team is here. So use us. we're sticking around for a little while. That's all I have for you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you.